There is so much of our industry that's still paper-based and physical sector-based and things going through the post or rekeying that has to be done. It's incredible.
Firstly, a warm welcome to the next in our series of podcasts entitled A Sense of Identity. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Anthony Rafferty, the CEO of Origo Services. So firstly, Anthony, thanks for becoming our next participant.
It's a pleasure to be out. Spending time speaking to you, Paul, is always time well spent. So I'm delighted.
Bless you. And I will give you the money. As I promised when we next catch up. Just before we crack in, I know we sort of talked about some of the subjects I was hoping we could cover. What I did want to do was, we've known each other a long time. People know we've known each other a long time. You've worked in some big old life co's and then obviously moved into really exciting territory, Origo and the FS fintech business. But I was reflecting actually on my connection with Origo, which, given the first question I was going to ask you, I thought might be a good entree. So my interactions with Origo go back such a long time. I was thinking back and looking back on my records before we came into this session, and they actually date back to probably not far off when Origo's first set up back in 89 or so, in the first message standards. I think we were a former business of mine, whereby we're the first to adopt those standards. So for me, the ongoing relationship has been an absolute pleasure. You guys we have great fun chatting to each other, but there's a much more serious side to all of this, of course. So I thought what might be a good place to start would be if you could, for the audience, explain to those that are listening, and as I say, thanks for doing this. How Origo came about, and also in your eyes, because you've led a lot of change already. How the business has evolved since way back then, but also under your tenure, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing how many people I do speak to who teach me about the history of Origo. Because you're right, I mean, it was formed in 1989. That's the same year as the World Wide Web. So we like to think of ourselves as the original fintech. And indeed, the reason it was set up was it was a group of, I think, 4 providers, pension companies, insurance companies in the market, put some money in. And the remit, I think, was to look for opportunities to make this market more efficient. What can we do that would be, on a non-competing basis to make the market more efficient? So some of the stuff the business did in its early years was, they created the exchange, which is still there today. That was one of the things they did. It sold that many, many years ago. But more famously than that, actually, was it created the standards through which participants in the life pensions and investments markets interacted with each other online. And that's pretty much what it did for its first decade, was those data standards, and you would have worked with Webline to connect with those. No longer does that, actually. That's now all run by Criterion, which is a separate business, still owned by the Origo's previous shareholders. But about 20, maybe 22 years ago, Origo got into software as a service. And it very, very quickly became the main kind of essence of what the organisation does. And so we're best known for a transfer service. So the Origo transfer service used to be called Origo Options. Some people still refer to it as that. Yeah. We rebranded a few years ago, didn't spend anything on the rebranding, but so people still call it Options. But Origo transfer service, it's now, I think 95% of all defined contribution pensions.
Yeah.
I think we do about $1 million a year, £46 billion worth last year. So that's our biggest service. The other thing that some people don't know about Origo is that we also have another brand called Unipass. I remember when I got the job, I had a friend, I was living in Yorkshire, and I had a friend who was a financial advisor. And he said, "Oh, well done on an Origo job. We use you for pension transfers." And I said, "Well, you probably use us for Unipass as well." And he lit up. I said, "That's not Origo, is it?"
Yeah.
To financial advisors, actually, Unipass brand is better known than Origo. So we're now a modern software as a service fintech. We've got 8 services that we're just about to add a 9th. And the common theme across all our services is that we connect the financial services marketplace for the benefit of everyone. So go on.
No, I was going to say, and that was where I was sort of leading with this, because I think people do have a misconception or understanding of the breadth of that tool set. Obviously I've been very familiar with Unipass and and Malloc, and the integration of those pieces are proliferating out in the market. That's fantastic. But that wider tool set that, as you say, connects this financial services community. Talk me through, if you can, that Unipass piece and the part that plays in those tools. Because of course, for an advisor, my understanding was that there was always this, and it still persists today, doesn't it? Trying to create some simplicity around access to tools, websites, utilities within the industry, without having to have a whole plethora of access points. So, but I know Unipass plays a part in the other tools. Can you share a bit more around that side of things?
Absolutely. And certainly put yourself in the shoes of a financial advisor. It's incredible, actually, the number of organizations that they need to interact with or gain access to systems of. And before Unipass Identity, it would have been username and password, and having multiple dozens and dozens and dozens of usernames and passwords. Putting the shoes of the platforms and the providers, they're having to, and again in the olden days, having to manage their own secure login methodology to gain access to portals and back office and things like that. So Unipass Identity, we vet the financial advisor to make sure they are who they say they are and the firm that they work for. We give them a certificate, which is unique to them. So it's either on the machine or in the cloud or both, actually. And it gives them secure and frictionless access to multiple brands across the market. So they just log in seamlessly. That's the whole essence of it, but securely. We think it's, we know actually, it's used multiple times a day by 8 out of 10 advisors.
Yeah, so and actually that ubiquity on login, I mean, that's a problem that persists today, doesn't it? I know, hopefully people out there are using sort of password store systems and varying it. There's this habit in there. People have lots of inboxes, and lots of portals, and therefore, might share a password across more than one, which is an absolute no-no. But I think that also that there's a similarity in a theme there, because of course Unipass helps solve those problems in terms of the gatekeeper and access those systems. I guess with our initiative with you guys and the Unipass and Malloc piece, it's about that. People have a lot of portals. I think 118 statistically. So you could suggest, well, are you going to log on to all those places with 118 inboxes, or do we create one secure one, which is yours? And so there's a theme that runs all the way through that. And is Unipass a piece of your technology that persists through the other areas, the hub and pension transfer side of things?
Actually, so certainly on Unipass Malloc, it's a core part of that. It would be, well, no doubt we'll come on to that, but it would have been wrong if there was a convoluted process to work out if it really was an advisor or not that was receiving or sending an email. So the core part of that, it is used in the hub, so to authenticate, it's the right person. We actually see Unipass as a brand. Unipass Identity, the product. Unipass Malloc, another product. Is it used on that? I don't know if it's used on letter of authority process. Certainly it's Unipass letter of authority, but we're just using the brand. The financial advisor will use Unipass Identity to log in
into that system. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
It's like our customers use it embedded as part of their journey.
Yeah. So it'd be great if there was a consumer version of that. My God, and I know everyone's still driving towards that. So, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, in terms of the challenges, you mentioned letter of authority there, and I know I attended recently an event where I think you won an award for that piece of tech and innovation. I know Matt Noble stood up, did a great presentation, and justifiably so won an award. So congratulations on that. Where would you say the biggest challenges are for Origo? I know you're doing a lot in dashboard space, and obviously that's been a long time coming, and thankfully things are moving in the right direction there. So what's the biggest challenge Origo is solving in the industry today? With Maillock and without it, beyond that, what are the areas you're focusing on?
It's funny, sometimes we get asked, are we going to take our services abroad, trade internationally? And it's actually not on our agenda because, as you know, there is so much of our industry that's still paper-based and physical sector-based and things going through the post or rekeying that has to be done. It's incredible, actually. And I think we are further behind in our industry from the banks. I mean, the banks with open banking have sort of got their act together, and they're online banking as well. Whereas I think the pensions investments industry, life industry, is sort of catching up. So really, our opportunities are around looking for other pain points, broken processes.
Yeah.
I mean, the letter of authority one, it's just ridiculous.
It seems so obvious that you want to have a centralised or solve that problem. But
Well, I met a new financial advisor just a couple of years ago, maybe 2 and a bit years ago, and literally turned up with 10 really poorly photocopied bits of paper. They hand wrote the names of my existing pension companies, investment companies, and I think a life insurance policy, sent them through the post. So there was 10 stamps to be paid for. It's so digital solution for that just makes it really quick, secure, and digital and so on. I mean, Unipass Maillock, we'll know as consumers ourselves the amount of sensitive information that gets sent through normal email. It's just ridiculous. Or this notion that, it's okay, I'll put a password on that file, through an unsecure email. There was one company I was dealing with that I was asking for a transfer value actually for one of my pensions when I was doing the consolidation of all my pension pots, and they said, I'll send you your documents. So it's a lot. I mean, it was a fraudster's dream on that document, really. Big amount of money, reasonably big amount of money in it as well. But I'll put a password on it, and the password will be your national insurance number.
Yeah.
But, why don't you just tell the fraudster, the cyber criminal, my national insurance number, while you go about it? And not just from a security perspective, that's the reason that we've teamed up for Unipass Maillock, but from an environmental perspective.
It's mad. When we've talked about this together, and we've seen some of the success stories of some of the adopters that are now moving more into not just the advisor comms, but their end customer, and also trying to automate some of those outputs. Because you quite rightly point out that the ESG sort of agenda, aside from economics, given the cycle we're in, saving money is obviously going to be really key. Addressing security, all those things, but actually trying to help digitize what should be a more digitized industry. Ironically, it feels strange to even say that, given that you and I are from a technical background. Everything we do is with that in mind. But those processes, they still persist. Letter of authority, like you say, at last, something actually having to solve that bottleneck.
But to properly answer your question, I suppose our biggest challenge is it's almost like, you think about our services, they're like a network. So on the one side, you've got, sometimes it's the advisor, it might be, for Hub, it would be practice management software businesses, but on the other, you've got platforms and providers. By the very nature of doing industry-wide solutions, that network effect, where the more people that join, the better for everybody, because you've created a network, that can sometimes be slow to begin with. That's probably our biggest kind of hurdle. So we're getting there now with all our services. The early months can be hard yards someone's got to jump first.
Yeah, that makes sense. So tell me a little bit more about, given this whole thing is entitled Sense of Identity, not just because we want to get people up to date with what our guests are doing, but also because we want to meet the people behind it, which I think is really important. This is still a people industry, even though we're doing things remotely. Tell me about your background and how you came to join Origo, because I think that people would like to understand the experience of in the company, and obviously under your new ownership structure, you guys having moved into different circles there. So yeah, it'd be good to understand a bit more about that background.
Sure, I actually feel very blessed actually to be here. It's funny how life just works out the way it works out. It's so my background before getting into pensions and investments, I was in banking. So the early parts of my career working for the surprise, the Scottish banks. So Royal Bank of Scotland, Bank of Scotland, and then back to Royal Bank of Scotland, which was unusual in those days. Very much proposition management, and with more of a sort of focus on the lending products. So credit cards and loans and mortgages, a little bit of savings as well, but mostly the sort of lending products. And I loved that. It was a great, being a proposition manager, it was great to get sort of end-to-end responsibility for the product. So not just the features or the price, but the customer service aspects of it, the sales, marketing aspects of it. It was a great learning ground for me, and I really enjoyed that actually. I left Royal Bank of Scotland. I thought, let's do something else with my career. And I got an opportunity at Aviva. And I spent, I worked for Aviva twice as well, actually. I spent 5 years the first time round, initially in lending, so it was equity release. Looking after that proposition, still to actually work in any business that the customer advocacy score was higher than for those customers. This is a great product, not right for everybody, but for those people it is right for. It's a great option. So did that for, I think, maybe a couple of years. And then I got asked to take on a role as sort of leading the pensions and investments business, the direct pensions and stuff that was with IFAs. I had to launch a platform. So the Viva platform, my team launched that. And look after the kind of back book, all those billions of pounds of pensions and investments back book and so on. And I've never done that before, but again, it was brilliant learning for me. I naively thought that the products would speak for themselves. This idea of having a sales team that would go out and sort of recommend that, it was kind of a new thing for me. I'd always been a direct-to-consumer person, within retail banks. So again, great learning, great experience to launch a platform. I launched two. Great fun and great learning. I went to Friends Life for a bit.
Yeah, and I remember our interactions way back then too as well. So yeah, it's been a while.
As I joked with Viva's chief financial officer, if you wanted me back, you didn't need to buy the whole business. You could have just.
He was obviously keen. He
didn't forget, actually. No, it was probably as a coincidence of leaving Aviva the first time round and then joining Friends Life. I think had Aviva not bought Friends Life, I probably might not have ended up here at Origo because I might not have been considered for the role. So it was just I'd met a recruitment consultant, got approached. The previous chief exec was hiring. It's something I want to explore. And once I did my sort of due diligence on the business, and I suppose like many people in those, let's say 5-6 years ago, I only really knew Origo for transfers. I didn't know they were making noises about dashboard, but I didn't know much more. So when I did my research, I thought, well, this is the one for me, and I went on with the process. And
and it's exciting. You talk about dashboard. I'd say it's exciting and quite flattering, isn't it, that you've secured a relationship in part of the engineering that will be dashboard, because that's been a long time coming, and again, long overdue. So hopefully the industry will now gain pace and pick up and move all those things along. What are your thoughts in terms of the future? Obviously from our perspective, we're continuing to see the mail proposition grow. It was great. We were delighted that you chose to partner with us. I'd be interested to understand why that was, apart from obviously the drinking, because we share a keen ability to be able to do that. But What about the future? How do you think things are going to evolve over the next 5 years? Because we've seen a huge amount of change and appetite for digital. COVID probably has accelerated that. I'm not entirely convinced companies necessarily move at the pace that you'd think they should do because of the impacts and the changes in consumer behaviour because of COVID. But how do you think the next 5 years looks in terms of evolution of those things?
Yeah, so I think we'll see a lot more digital solutions for things. I think consumer duties actually, it's big projects amongst providers and platforms and so on. So I think it's a really, really positive thing. And I think it will act as a catalyst for more streamlined and digital solutions that, takes away some of the opportunities for error or risks or things taking long. So that should be beneficial for us as a business, who wants to build digital solutions. I actually think that as the population, if you like, gets older and it's the next generation coming through, I think that generation are just expecting more things to be digital. They thought my oldest, what's she now, 21, she's grown up with, Deliveroo, Uber, in the likes. I remember we first got Deliveroo, Fiona and I were out for a meal and they were just old enough to look after themselves for a little bit. I got these 3 text messages. They had set up Deliveroo and ordered 3 different meals from 3 different restaurants. I think,
the world's changed. Yeah. Is that what you think? Well, I sort of missed slightly there a step, but I think it probably is a good segue. So, is that why this is important to advisors and product providers? Because the consumers they're dealing with, their expectations are now so much more technically focused. So, the ability to protect and prove that. Is that why you think that there might be a greater impetus?
I think so. I think there's 2 themes there. I think there's 2 expectations which are growing amongst consumers and end customers, which is one is it's that odd that, you meet a new financial advisor, it's not really reasonable to say, right, I'll be back in touch in 6 weeks once I've got all the paperwork from your existing client. It's ridiculous. But the other, I think it's a growing view that consumers are waking up to the fact that their data is really important, and it's their data, not their companies that they deal with data. So it needs to be secured, and it needs to do what they want it to do. Well, so I think those 2 themes are really relevant for what both our organisations do.
I agree. I think there's I think your example is brilliant there because service expectations. For me. If something doesn't work quickly, I lose interest really quick. I'm not a patient consumer. I don't think I'm unusual in that. And the other thing is the expectation of pace in anything. All of the services that include the ones that we work on together are not just about meeting obligations. It's not about ticking a regulatory box. It's about can using this technology be simple. Can you simply use something that helps you do things quicker, more efficient, and in a way your customers just demand? So it feels like, as I say, both organisations are very wedded to that. Maybe spent a lot of time, didn't we, together when we were first looking about the integration and how Malloc would work with Unipass and all those things, labouring over the work. It just has to work out of the box very simply.
Absolutely.
And the letter authority one you mentioned before. Again, it's just got to be easy, isn't it? Otherwise it won't be used.
Easier. It's going to be cheaper than the stamp, the bits letter authority. But and that's Unipass Malloc. That's why it's been designed so it just plugs into Outlook. It just looks and feels like you're using Outlook, but with the peace of mind that it's absolutely secure. It's been sent to the right person. You can recall it, and it makes it unopenable by the person you've sent it to. So, but it had it been, and I think it's just like a 2-click sign up.
Very straightforward.
It has to be, and there's no instructions manual because you don't need it.
No, agreed. Yeah, agreed. It's been really interesting. I always like to finish on something a bit more personal because some of the most profound statements I've had out of these sessions are when people get a chance to think about their past and advice they would give. I always ask the question, what advice would you give to your younger self, career-wise and otherwise? Is there anything that, you know, maybe not one thing, but, you know, any words of wisdom you can share?
One was funny one that I can think of is I would have said, if you visit Mexico, don't have the clams on the first night. It's before the pandemic, and I literally spent 10 days in bed. So that's
that's good.
Serious. If I think back to sort of the middle part of my career, I mean, I used to be somebody that got quite stressed about stuff. I would dwell on things, I would worry about stuff, and, you know, I could feel the adrenaline sort of pumping up in me. I just thought that there was something wrong with me, and I was maybe not well equipped with all that kind of stuff. People were better than me at dealing with that sort of stuff, and it was, when would that have been? Maybe about 15 years ago. I actually discovered how the brain works and what stress is, so fight or flight response, and then mindfulness as a way of just relaxing about things. Now, for the last, it took a couple of years to kind of master it, but probably for the last maybe 13 years, I've actually been like really, really calm, and it's been really beneficial for me personally and for my business life and my sort of family life as well. So that it would have been, message to my younger self would have been at the very start of your career, learn that stuff and make sure you look after yourself and that you're giving your brain a little break, and that things aren't really as bad as they might seem, because my first half of my career might have been a lot easier actually. So probably that would be the one bit of advice. I hope we underestimate the power of the brain, and I think that most people are pretty intelligent, but I think what maybe holds a lot of people back is the resilience to, you know, this crazy world that we live in and this environment. So I would have learned that sooner.
No, it's a good one. And I have a suspicion at some point, I hope Sam, my colleague, usually is the one that does all the clever editing around this stuff, will post together. So far, every person has come up with the good words of wisdom. If you're sitting together and get someone to listen to those alone, there's some good lessons. So that's really useful. Fantastic. Listen, I think you know, probably given where we're up to, we've been talking for long enough now. But thanks so much for agreeing to join in with our podcast. I hope the listeners have got a bit more under the skin, not only of Origo, but of Anthony Rafferty. Thank you very much for coming along.
That's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Cheers, Anthony.